Welcome back to the program. Nearly 3.2 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week, the lowest number since the U.S. went into lockdown. But the figure was slightly higher than expected. In total now, 33.5 million people have lost their jobs over the past 7 weeks. Later today, the U.S. Labor Department will release its key non-farm payroll report for April. The data is expected to show that more than 20 million jobs were lost, while the unemployment rate jumped to at least 16% last month. Let's bring in Edward Stringham, President, American Institute of Economic Research. Steve and Karen will also join the conversation. Edward, thank you for being with us today. We all know that today's employment report will be grim, to say the least. What's the most important metric to be watching?
Well, it's going to be a disaster again, unfortunately, but and it's not even going to count all the gig economy workers who don't even show up in this data. But I would say the good news is we can see the new unemployment claims gradually decreasing over the past few weeks. And I think that trend is going to continue. So it's definitely a disaster. Nobody should be excited about it. But things are getting a little bit less bad than they have been compared to a few weeks ago. It's getting better.
There's always an obsession with the headline figure as well, but what are the figures that our viewers should be looking at for the longevity in the medium term? Should we be looking at the U6, the average hourly earnings? Which piece of data within the employment report do you think is the most apt at the moment?
I mean, I think the whole thing is just a big aberration, and it's so out of the ordinary that we can't even think about this in terms of the normal statistics. I would say the good glimmer of hope is showing up in stock prices, that stock prices are predicting that future conditions for businesses are going to be improving. The big thing I'm looking at is the VIX, the volatility index, implied volatility for stock markets. And we've seen that been plummeting from 80 now down well under 30. And so I think that the current unemployment statistics are a big problem. But I think they're, we hope, temporary. One of the big issues, I would say, is part of the CARES Act. We've got these very generous unemployment benefits. In many cases, they're paying an extra $600 per week. In many cases, the workers are getting more money to be on unemployment. The CARES Act was trying to get businesses to get those workers off unemployment, which is obviously a burden on the unemployment insurance, but now they're being paid to sit on the unemployment. So there's a lot of countervailing forces which are preventing the market from functioning as it should be.
Edward, I was reading a story about that where an employer was just gobsmacked by the fact that she'd set up this furlough scheme, but then employees were dismayed because they wanted to be seeking those benefits where they could be receiving more money from the government than they would have been from the employer. Isn't this a challenge? You've seen this very strong employment market where many people thought they could get a job if they wanted one, but it's completely changed. Are those jobs going to be there, especially in small businesses, in 6 months' time?
Yeah, it's really worrisome. I totally agree with you. So we've got people who want to get back to work. We've got the businesses who desperately need these workers, but the workers getting paid to not be on the payroll, that's burdening the individual states' unemployment insurance. And the longer this drags on, that's really what worries me. It's one thing for a business to be shut down for 2 weeks or even a month. But if these companies are going to be closed, especially small businesses, for 6 months, there's going to be a lot of these companies that unfortunately are not going to be able to make it. So I think we really need to be thinking about these companies and the long run effects. It's one thing to just say, okay, just do this temporarily, but we can't have a 10-year lockdown or even a multi-year lockdown. It's just very worrisome to me.
Edward, thank you so much for weighing in, being with us this morning. Edward Stringham, President, American Institute of Economic Research. Steve, Karen, thank you as well. Well, that's it for me today. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for watching. I'm Julianna Tatelbaum, and